A girl named Natalie gets up to close the door. At that moment, a drunk guy stumbles into the room. Her graceful figure catches his eye. Little does she know how terrifying things are about to get. Natalie gets dressed and lies back in her boyfriend's arms. But suddenly, the drunk guy barges in again. Under the influence, he starts spewing vulgar words. He won't stop harassing her. He even says in front of her boyfriend, "With something so good, you should share it with others." Natalie's boyfriend tries to get others to throw the drunk guy out. But instead, they act like they're just waiting to see what will happen. The drunk guy gets even more excited and pulls off their blanket. Natalie's boyfriend kicks him off the bed. But the drunk guy doesn't back down, he gets even louder. His words become more disgusting. Natalie's boyfriend angrily pushes him outside, then shuts the door. But the drunk guy bursts back in. The others drop their pretense and reveal their true colors. The drunk guy even starts pulling off her pants. Seeing his girlfriend being harassed, Natalie's boyfriend can't hold back. He starts attacking the drunk guys. The more he fights, the angrier he gets. The others rush in to pull him off and restrain him. Natalie tries to help her boyfriend, but someone covers her mouth and throws her onto the bed. After being ganged up on, Natalie's boyfriend is left beaten on the ground. He looks at Natalie lying on the bed. The drunk guy still hasn't given up his vile intentions. He rushes over to assault Natalie. Her boyfriend, lying on the ground, hears the commotion and gets up again. She hurriedly puts her pants back on. Natalie's boyfriend is grabbed by the others. He yells at her to run away as fast as she can. She struggles to her feet. She glances back at her boyfriend, then runs barefoot out the door. She desperately tries to find help. She runs in minus 30 degrees Celsius weather, but all around her is just endless snow. There are no houses anywhere nearby. The nearest highway is still about 6.21 miles away. Even though her feet are freezing and cracking, she doesn't stop. She keeps running through the cold night. The next morning, a hunter notices blood trails in the snow. He changes into white gear to blend in, then grabs his equipment and follows the blood trail. Eventually, he spots signs of someone falling in the snow. He kept following the tracks on the snow. In the distance, he saw someone lying down. The hunter raised his gun and approached, only to see the person lying motionless. As he got closer, he realized the girl was already dead. Her body was so cold it had stiffened. The hunter took out his radio and reported the incident to the local police. Officer Jane quickly arrived at the scene. There were no houses around the crime scene. Moreover, the victim Natalie's home was about a 30-minute drive away. How could Natalie, barefoot, have ended up here? Jane noticed bloodstains on the hem of Natalie's pants. It was clear she had been assaulted before her death. Due to the area's consistently low temperatures below minus 20 degrees Celsius, Natalie's body had frozen solid. Forensic doctors had to conduct a thorough examination. Simply observing the crime scene provided no clues at all. But the hunter, judging by the distance between Natalie's footprints and the tracks at the scene, speculated that she had run a long way to get here. At night, the temperature here drops 10 degrees lower than during the day. Inhaling too much cold air can cause pulmonary blockage. Eventually, the lungs burst, leading to choking on one's own blood and death. This is a remote and desolate area. What was she in such a hurry for, running out barefoot on a freezing night? After speaking to villagers, Jane learned the hunter's name was Corey. He was a renowned local hunter, very familiar with the area's terrain. Jane decided to enlist Corey's help in the investigation. After forensic examination, Natalie's head showed injuries from a heavy weapon. 2 of her ribs were broken. Her legs had multiple injuries. Her genital area showed signs of tearing. This confirmed she had been assaulted while still alive. The forensic report concluded that her cause of death was pulmonary hemorrhage. The officer believed this was enough to close the case. But Jane insisted it was a homicide. She was determined to find the perpetrator. Jane visited Natalie's house for more information. Natalie's home was near Corey's. Natalie's father seemed unaware of her situation. Recently, he thought his daughter had turned 18. So he let her make her own choices, even in love. The family gave Natalie maximum freedom. Jane initially thought Natalie's family didn't care about her. But seeing Natalie's grieving mother in her room, she realized she was wrong. What parent wouldn't care about their child? At that moment, Corey arrived. Seeing his best friend, Natalie's father broke down in tears, hugging Corey and crying uncontrollably. Both of their daughters had been assaulted and then murdered, so they could deeply empathize with each other's pain. Natalie's father told Corey that if they found the killer, he would kill him on the spot, no matter who it was. Since they had no leads, they went to look for Natalie's brother. Corey surveyed the surroundings and then went to the back door. Natalie's brother was an addict. The sheriff and Jane went to knock on his door. The person who opened the door was high on drugs. The sheriff asked him, "Is Natalie's brother here?" Quote. The man didn't answer but stared at Jane from head to toe, his thoughts seemingly turning sinister. Jane showed her badge and demanded information about Natalie's brother. The sheriff, standing beside her, also threatened him. "Do you want to end up in jail?" Quote. The addict fumbled through his pockets and suddenly pulled out pepper spray, spraying it directly at the sheriff and Jane. Both of them were blinded and fell to the ground. Meanwhile, Corey waited at the back door with a shovel. The moment someone opened the door, Corey struck him in the face. It was a move born of years of experience. Jane stumbled into the house, but with her eyes still burning, she tripped after only a few steps. She got up and pressed on. The lingering pepper spray stung her eyes. The addict tried to fight back, but he was too disoriented and missed every shot he fired at Jane. Jane, however, hit him in a critical spot. Natalie's brother had been there all night. It was only now that he learned of his sister's death. He broke down and cried in anguish, shaking his head in disbelief at the loss of his sister. He only knew that last night, his sister went to see her boyfriend. Jane wanted to investigate immediately, but Corey stopped her. he noticed snowmobile tracks in the snow. Following the tracks, they led back to where the girl's body was found. Strangely, there were no return tracks from the snowmobile. This suggested that the other end of the tracks held the answer. The two got on a snowmobile and followed the trail. They discovered another body. The sheriff mentioned there was a drilling station nearby, equipped with cameras. They planned to check it out the next day. Corey wanted to question Natalie's brother for more clues, but he lashed out, mocking Corey. "You couldn't even protect your own daughter, and now you're playing detective?" Quote. Natalie's brother struck a nerve with Corey. "A man acts, not just talks." Corey retorted, giving him a lesson and a warning. "My business is none of your concern." Quote. At this point, Natalie's brother finally admitted that Natalie's boyfriend was Matt. He worked as a guard at the drilling station. At the same time, forensic examination confirmed that the newly discovered body was Matt. It seemed the case was about to be unraveled. All clues pointed toward the drilling station. The next day, the sheriff led a team to investigate the station. Meanwhile, Corey headed to the mountains in another direction to search for additional clues. The sheriff asked the guards if they had seen Matt. One guard said that Matt had gone out with his girlfriend a few days ago and hadn't returned. At that moment, another guard arrived. Jane noticed that both guards had injuries on their faces. This was highly suspicious. The guard explained, "If you crash into a tree while snowmobiling, you'll end up with injuries like these." Quote. But Jane still felt something was off. So, she told them they were investigating because Matt's girlfriend had reported him missing. She claimed Matt had disappeared. One of the guards said, "That can't be true." Quote. The radio already reported that Natalie died in the woods. Quote. This was exactly what Jane wanted to hear, because she had never mentioned Natalie's name up to this point. The media coverage also didn't reveal the victim's identity. So how did he know? Clearly, they were hiding something. The guards realized they had exposed themselves. The atmosphere grew tense. The guards began to form a defensive circle surrounding the police. Both sides drew their guns on each other. The standoff escalated quickly. "What are you doing? Put the gun down." Quote. Both sides issued threats. Just as they were about to shoot, Jane urgently intervened to defuse the situation. "This is federal land." Quote. "I have jurisdiction over everything here." Quote. "I'll count to 3, and everyone will back off and drop their weapons." Quote. But now that their secret was exposed, the guards had no intention of letting Jane's team go. Meanwhile, Corey discovered a small cave. Inside, he found some lion cubs. The lioness had been shot dead. There were also snowmobile tracks leading from there to the drilling station. The trajectory clearly connected this spot to the station. He immediately sensed danger. He tried to contact Jane but got no response. Realizing something was wrong, he grabbed his gun and rushed to assist. Meanwhile, Jane kept knocking on doors, but no one answered. Then suddenly, the gunfight erupted without warning. The two sides exchanged fire. Fortunately, Jane was wearing a bulletproof vest. Although Jane was wearing a bulletproof vest, the close-range shot still hurt her. She endured the pain and fired back but couldn't hold off the gunman inside. The guards had clearly planned this in advance. The gunmen inside worked together with those outside. Soon, the other officers were killed. Now only Jane was left. One guard aimed his gun at her. In a critical moment, he noticed something in the distance. Suddenly, a shot rang out, hitting him. Jane took the opportunity to hide under the floor. The other two guards were still confused. All they saw was a blank expanse of snow ahead. A second later, both were shot dead. Even the gunman inside was taken out. The drunk man who killed Natalie panicked. He realized they had messed with the wrong people. In a hurry, he crawled to the window and jumped out. Jane wasn't about to let him go. She fired several shots, injuring his leg, but he managed to keep running. Jane's condition wasn't looking good. Fortunately, Corey arrived just in time. He helped Jane into the house and stopped her bleeding. Jane asked him to chase after the criminal. She insisted he must not let him go. She told Corey he didn't have to bring him back. Corey understood her meaning. Outside, the criminal was still fleeing. Corey suddenly appeared behind him and knocked him out. When the criminal regained consciousness, he was on a mountaintop. His shoes and socks had been removed. He confessed everything that had happened that night. He admitted his guilt. After learning the truth, Corey untied him and gave him a chance. "The nearest highway is 10 kilometers away," Corey said. "If you make it there, you'll be saved." Quote. When the man hesitated, Corey fired a shot near his ear. Terrified, the man started running as fast as he could. Now he was in the same situation as Natalie that night. Alone in the snow, barefoot, running for his life. Natalie had run 10 kilometers driven by sheer will to survive. The criminal didn't make it 1 kilometer before collapsing and dying. Corey looked at the lifeless body and finally felt at peace. After receiving treatment, Jane's injuries were no longer life-threatening. She just needed rest to recover. Corey shared the good news with Natalie's father. Even though the criminal was dealt with, their daughter could never return. And so, the movie concludes. The film is called Wind River. Quote. This episode's question is, do you agree with how Corey handled the criminal? If yes, comment 1. Quote. If no, comment 2. Quote. Thank you for watching. Goodbye and see you next time.